40 seconds. If you are an average knowledge worker today, that is exactly how long you can hold your focus before you are interrupted. Or worse, before you interrupt yourself. Right now, at this exact millisecond, your brain is being violently bombarded by over 11 million bits of sensory information. The temperature of the room, the hum of the refrigerator, the feeling of the clothes resting against your skin. But your conscious mind, it is biologically bottlenecked. Out of those 11 million bits, you can only process about 40 of them per second. Welcome to the Great Restructuring. We live in an era where technology is evolving at blinding speeds, but our human biology is stuck in the Stone Age. We are drowning in a sea of distractions, armed with a brain that is literally hardwired to be hijacked. Because of this, the ability to do deep work to lock in, ignore the noise, and push your cognitive limits is no longer just a good professional habit. It is a superpower. It is the single most valuable skill you can possess in the modern economy. But every time you sit down to do the hard things, a psychological trapdoor opens up beneath you. It's called the principle of least resistance. Instead of writing that proposal or studying that complex material, you suddenly feel the urgent need to answer a few emails, to reorganize your desk, to check your messages. You trick yourself into doing shallow work, tasks that give you the illusion of productivity while actively avoiding the short-term discomfort of intense concentration. Why do we do this? Why is it so agonizing to just sit down and focus? And more importantly, how do a rare few people seem to bend reality to their will, mastering complex skills in a fraction of the time it takes everyone else? There is a biological switch inside your brain, a specific potent cocktail of neurochemicals that you can learn to trigger on command. But before I show you how to unlock this state and how to weaponize a bizarre, counterintuitive technique called scatterfocus to outproduce your peers, you need to understand the invisible parasite that is destroying your attention. Society has sold you a lie. They told you that to be successful, you need to be a masterful multitasker. But neurological science is incredibly clear on this. Multitasking does not exist. It is a biological impossibility. When you think you are multitasking, what your brain is actually doing is task switching. You are rapidly, violently yanking your attention from one object to another. And every single time you do this, you pay a devastating toll called the switch cost. Imagine your brain's attention is like a heavy freight train. Every time you switch tasks, the train has to slam on the brakes, change tracks, and slowly build up momentum all over again. This requires immense mental energy for goal shifting and rule activation. The result? A lag that permanently destroys up to 40% of your overall productivity. But the damage doesn't stop there. When you glance at your phone and then look back at your work, you leave something behind. It is called attention residue. Think of attention residue as invisible mental leeches. Fragments of your previous task remain stuck in your mind, actively draining your processing power. Even though your eyes are looking at your deep work, a piece of your brain is still ruminating on that text message. You are operating at a fraction of your true cognitive capacity. You are artificially inflating your extraneous load, the mental friction caused by notifications and pings, which completely suffocates the deep learning and skill development you desperately need. To stop this drain, you have to look at the architecture of your own mind. You need to understand your attentional space. Think of your attentional space as your brain's RAM. It is a tiny, fragile mental scratch pad where information is held, manipulated, and connected, and its capacity is shockingly small. At any given moment, your attentional space can only hold about 4 unique chunks of information. Simply understanding the words I am speaking to you right now is consuming more than half of that space. There is almost no room left for anything else. Guarding this space is your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. Located right behind your forehead, your PFC is the executive CEO of your brain. It is responsible for top-down attention. This means your brain decides what to focus on based on your intentions, rather than being violently dragged around by bottom-up sensory noise like bright colors and loud pings. But your CEO has a fatal flaw, a biological glitch. Your prefrontal cortex has an evolutionary novelty bias. It is absolutely addicted to the new. Thousands of years ago, noticing a sudden movement in the bushes kept you alive. Today, that exact same survival mechanism creates a productivity black hole. Every time you switch tasks or look at a shiny new distraction, your brain rewards you with a hit of dopamine. Think of dopamine not just as a reward, but as a homing missile for stimulation. It compels you to compulsively check your devices, trading the deep, silent satisfaction of mastery for cheap, hollow hits of chemical pleasure. So, how do we fight back? How do we build an elite, impenetrable fortress of focus? Elite focus is not a product of white-knuckling willpower. It is the result of strategically deploying 3 specific neurochemicals to filter out the noise. The first is acetylcholine. Imagine acetylcholine as a high-powered sniper scope in your visual cortex. It dramatically increases your signal-to-noise ratio. It physically tags specific areas of your environment as critically important while actively blinding you to nearby distractions. The second is norepinephrine. Think of this as your brain's internal alarm bell. It is similar to adrenaline. It regulates your wakefulness and mental vigilance, speeding up your reaction times and creating a powerful grab effect that locks your brain onto the task at hand. The final piece is dopamine. When harnessed correctly, dopamine doesn't distract you. It acts as the engine. It enhances your brain's ability to smoothly and flexibly shift focus based on what you already know, keeping you relentlessly driven toward your goal. When these 3 chemicals align perfectly, you cross the threshold from deep work into the holy grail of human performance, a state called flow. Flow is the zone of effortless attention. It is a state of hyperfocus, where you completely lose your sense of self and your sense of time. But flow is incredibly demanding. It only occurs at the absolute perfect intersection of challenge and skill. If a task is too hard, you feel anxiety. If a task is too easy, you feel boredom. But when the challenge perfectly matches your elite skills, your attentional space is completely filled, you become an unstoppable force of nature. But knowing the biology isn't enough. To command this state, you must move from theory to relentless execution. You must implement the high-performance habits of the elite. First, you must master the rule of 3. Because your attentional space can only hold a few chunks of data, massive to-do lists are psychologically paralyzing. At the start of every single day, you must set exactly 3 primary intentions. 3 goals fit perfectly within the human mental scratchpad. You can recall them, protect them, and execute them without overwhelming your system. Second, you must use implementation intentions. Vague goals like, I will work harder today, are completely useless. They have abysmal success rates. You must define exactly when, where, and how you will execute a task. Writing down, I will write 2 pages of my report at 9 a.m. at the kitchen table can literally triple your odds of success. You are pre-programming your brain's GPS. Third, you must ruthlessly manipulate your environment using the 20-second rule. External cues dictate human behavior. Willpower is finite, but distance is absolute. If your phone is sitting on your desk, your brain is burning background energy just trying to resist it. But if you put that distraction 20 seconds away in another room or inside a drawer, the spell is broken. The impulse to check it dies before you even stand up. Fourth, you must use strategic caffeine. Caffeine narrows your focus. It forces your attentional walls up high, giving you fierce determination for tedious tasks. But here is the secret. Because it builds those walls so high, it actively destroys your ability to be creative. Use it to execute. Never use it to brainstorm. Which brings us to the ultimate secret of elite performers, the open loop I promised you earlier. The greatest threat to your focus is not the work itself, it is how you are resting. Focus is a highly finite resource. It depletes rapidly. Your brain operates on what are called ultradian rhythms. This means your mental energy is physically incapable of sustaining intense focus for more than 90 minutes at a time. If you try to grind past 90 minutes, your performance falls off a cliff. You must structure your life into 90-minute sprints of total immersion, followed by 15 minutes of deliberate, non-negotiable rest. But what you do during that rest is the difference between average output and absolute genius. While hyperfocus is the engine of productivity, a totally different state is the engine of creativity. It is called scatterfocus. Scatterfocus is the lost art of intentional mind wandering. When you step away from your desk and do something completely habitual, like taking a walk without your phone or standing in the shower, your brain enters the default mode network. This is the state where magic happens. In the default mode network, your brain spends almost half its time being prospective. It connects the invisible dots. It plans for the future. It takes all the hard data you shoved into your head during your 90-minute sprint and spins it into brilliant creative insights. This is why your best ideas never happen at your desk. They happen when you finally let your mind off the leash. And the ultimate form of scatterfocus? Sleep. Missing just one night of sleep can violently shrink your attentional space by up to 60% the next day. Dreaming is essentially scatterfocus on steroids. It is your brain taking the chaos of the day, purging the irrelevant noise, and cementing the crucial lessons deep into your long-term memory. If you want to outwork the world, you must respect the biology of rest. You must also embrace the one feeling modern society has taught you to fear above all else: boredom. Boredom is not a lack of things to do. Boredom is the physical restlessness you feel when your brain is forced to adapt to a lower level of stimulation. Every time you resist the urge to pull out your phone in line at the grocery store, every time you sit in a quiet room and just let the silence exist, you are doing something incredibly profound. You are physically lowering your brain's baseline of stimulation. When you lower that baseline, the quiet, meaningful, complex tasks of life suddenly become incredibly engaging. Focus is not a gift. It is a muscle. And neuroplasticity guarantees that you can physically rewire the architecture of your brain through deliberate practice. Practices like mindfulness, simply returning a wandering mind back to your breath, can expand your working memory by over 30% in just a few weeks. You are literally expanding the hard drive of your mind. We live in an age of infinite distraction, where the masses are hypnotized by glowing screens and shallow rewards. But you now have the blueprint to break free. Master your attentional space. Guard it against the residue of multitasking. Ride the 90-minute rhythms of your biology. And weaponize your downtime with deliberate scatter focus. Because in a world where everyone is violently fighting for scraps of attention, the one who can command their own mind commands the future. If you found value in this deep dive into the human mind, click the subscribe button and hit the like icon below. It helps us continue to bring you the science of elite performance. Now, put your phone in another room and get to work.